You've just entered Midnight Horror TV. Lock your doors because the horror has just begun. The rain started before sunset. By midnight, it no longer sounded like rain. It sounded like thousands of fingernails scraping across the roof of the truck. Miles Mercer kept both hands tight on the steering wheel as his 18-wheeler pushed through the darkness of Route 91 somewhere deep in northern Wyoming. The road cut through endless wilderness like a crack through the earth itself. No towns, no gas stations, just black forest and storm. The cargo trailer behind him carried 32 wooden crates sealed with red industrial tape. According to the shipping papers, the boxes contained antique hospital equipment purchased from an abandoned medical facility outside Portland. Miles didn't care what was inside. Cargo was cargo. You drive. You deliver. You get paid. That's simple. Usually. Lightning flashed across the sky for half a second, revealing walls of pine trees standing unnaturally close to the road. Then darkness swallowed everything again. The truck cabin shook as thunder rolled somewhere over the mountains. Miles glanced at the dashboard clock. 1:47 a.m. 8 more hours to Denver. He reached for the coffee sitting beside him. Cold. Damn. The radio speaker hissed softly with static. No active channels. Nobody crazy enough to be driving this route tonight. Except him. The rain became heavier. The windshield wipers moved faster, but still couldn't clear the water completely. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Miles leaned closer toward the windshield. That's when he noticed it. Something was hanging from one of the trees beside the road. A shape, human-sized. He frowned. Another flash of lightning illuminated the forest. This time he saw it clearly. Not hanging, standing. A man, completely still between the trees, wearing old white clothes soaked by rain. Miles looked away for 1 second to focus on the curve ahead. When he looked back, the man was closer, now standing beside the guardrail. Miles immediately sat upright. What the hell? The truck roared past. For one terrifying moment, the headlights lit up the stranger's face. Skin pale gray, eyes completely black, mouth stretched too wide. Then he vanished behind the truck. Miles exhaled sharply. Just exhaustion. He laughed once under his breath, trying to calm himself. 3 straight days driving. Barely any sleep. His brain was playing tricks on him. That had to be it. He rolled his shoulders and turned the heater slightly higher, but cold air blew from the vents. Ice cold. Miles checked the controls again. The heater was still on, yet the cabin temperature kept dropping. His breath became visible. That's not good. The dashboard lights flickered suddenly. Once, twice, then stabilized again. Outside, the storm somehow became quieter, not weaker. Quieter? The rain no longer hit the truck loudly. Instead, it sounded distant now, muted, like the truck had entered some place where sound itself didn't work properly. Miles noticed the road ahead looked strange. The asphalt reflected the headlights oddly, almost like shallow black water instead of pavement. He slowed slightly. The GPS screen froze. Then every letter disappeared. A single sentence appeared instead. Turn back. Miles blinked. What? The message vanished instantly. Normal map again. His fingers tightened around the wheel. Nope. He grabbed the GPS cord and unplugged it completely. The screen died. Electrical problem. That's all. Lightning flashed again. Something ran across the road ahead. Fast. Too fast. Miles hit the brakes instinctively. The truck skidded violently on wet pavement. The trailer swung sideways. For a horrifying second, he thought the entire rig would jackknife. But the tires caught traction again. The truck stopped diagonally across the highway. Rain poured over the windshield. Miles breathed hard. What did I hit? He looked forward carefully. Nothing there. No animal. No body. Nothing. Only rain and darkness. Then, knock, knock, knock. Miles froze. The sound came from the passenger side window. He turned slowly. A little girl stood outside the truck. She couldn't have been older than 10. Long wet hair covered most of her face. She wore pajamas stained with mud and stood barefoot in the freezing rain. Miles' stomach tightened immediately. No child should have been out here, especially not alone. He lowered the window slightly. "Hey, kid," the girl spoke before he could finish. "Don't open the trailer." Her voice sounded wrong, too deep, like multiple voices speaking together. Miles stared at her. "You okay? Where are your parents?" The girl slowly lifted one hand and pointed toward the cargo trailer behind him. Something moved underneath the trailer. A shadow. Crawling. Miles instantly locked the doors. What the hell? The little girl smiled. Not normally. Her lips stretched wider and wider until the corners of her mouth split unnaturally across her cheeks. Then the truck lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed everything. Miles' heartbeat exploded. Oh God. The cabin lights returned 1 second later. The girl was gone. Only rain remained outside. Miles immediately shifted gears and slammed the accelerator. The truck surged forward again. His breathing became uneven. His hands shook badly now. He checked every mirror repeatedly. Nothing. No child. No movement. Just endless black highway. 5 minutes later, the CB radio crackled alive by itself. A tired male voice whispered through heavy static. "Driver, if you hear this, don't stop near the bridge." Miles grabbed the mic. "Who is this?" Static answered him. Then the voice returned. "They hide underwater." The transmission cut off. A second later, another voice came through. Different person. Screaming. Pure terror. Then silence again. Miles' chest tightened. He changed channels rapidly. Every frequency contained the same thing. Static. Whispers. Crying. And somewhere beneath all of it, the sound of water. Not rain. Moving water. A river. The road ahead curved through dense forest. Fog crawled low across the asphalt now. Miles noticed old, rusted warning signs along the roadside. Flood zone. Bridge ahead. No emergency services after midnight. That's comforting. Lightning flashed again, and suddenly the bridge appeared. Long, narrow, ancient steel construction over a black river below. The moment the truck reached the bridge, the engine temperature gauge dropped to 0. The headlights dimmed. The radio exploded with deafening static. Then every mirror on the truck reflected the same thing, not the road behind him. Water, dark water filled with floating human faces. Miles nearly swerved. The faces stared directly at him from the mirrors, dozens of them, eyes open, mouths moving silently underwater. Then one face rose closer than the others, a truck driver wearing an old highway uniform, half his face missing. His mouth moved slowly. 3 words. He opened IT. Miles felt cold. Nolan didn't move. The pale hand remained pressed against the passenger side window. 5 long fingers, too long. The skin looked stretched tightly over the bones underneath, almost translucent beneath the flashing lightning outside. But the worst part, the hand was upside down, as if whatever owned it was hanging above the truck instead of standing beside it. Nolan forced himself not to look upward. The child's whisper still echoed inside his head. "Don't look out the window." Another metallic groan crawled across the roof. Heavy, slow, something above him shifted its weight. The entire cabin leaned slightly to the right. Nolan's breathing became uneven. He reached carefully toward the gear shift. The moment his hand touched it, the thing outside tapped once against the glass. TAP. Every screen inside the truck instantly turned on by itself. Dashboard, GPS, radio monitor, temperature display, all showing the same thing. A live camera angle from above the truck. Nolan stared in horror. Something enormous crouched on top of the trailer. Its body looked almost human, except for the limbs. Too many joints. Arms bending in impossible directions against the metal roof. Its skin constantly changed texture every few seconds. Wet flesh, dark fur, burned skin, then smooth white skin again, like it couldn't decide what it was supposed to look like. Its head slowly rotated toward the camera. No face, only moving skin. Then words formed underneath the camera feed. "Do not let it hear you speak." The screen shut off instantly. The pale hand disappeared from the window. Nolan immediately slammed the truck into gear. The tires screamed across the wet highway as the 18-wheeler surged forward again. The thing above him moved. Fast. Its weight slammed across the roof from back to front with violent metallic bangs. The truck shook hard. Nolan gripped the wheel tightly as branches blurred past outside. Then the radio clicked on. Not static. Music. An old country song from the 1970s played softly through the speakers. Nolan's stomach dropped. His father used to play that exact song during long road trips when Nolan was a kid. Nobody else knew that song. Nobody. The music suddenly slowed unnaturally. The singer's voice deepened, warped, then transformed into Nolan's father speaking calmly through the radio. "Nolan, pull over." His hands began shaking immediately. His father had died 11 years ago. "Nolan," the voice repeated softly. "You left me there." "No." Rain circled strangely around the truck again, still not touching it. The road ahead no longer looked familiar. The pine trees had changed. Now they stood perfectly equal distances apart, like artificial copies of real trees. Every mile of forest looked exactly the same. Repeated. Copied. Nolan checked the rearview mirror. No trailer. For half a second, the truck behind him was missing completely. Only darkness attached to the cabin. Then the trailer returned again. Nolan blinked rapidly. What is happening? The refrigeration monitor beeped suddenly. Temperature breach. The trailer had warmed from minus 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 87 degrees Fahrenheit in less than 10 seconds. Then the monitor displayed a second message. Internal movement detected. Nolan stared. The cargo wasn't alive. That was impossible. A loud impact exploded from inside the trailer. Not knocking this time. Running. Something sprinted violently from one end of the trailer to the other, fast enough to shake the entire truck. Then it stopped directly behind the cabin wall. Silence. Nolan could hear breathing again, not through the radio. Inside the trailer itself. Deep, wet, massive lungs inhaling slowly. Then came another sound. Crying. A woman crying softly somewhere behind him. The crying slowly became laughter, then immediately became screaming. Nolan pressed harder on the accelerator. 90. The road signs became strange after mile 117. Some displayed impossible distances. Denver 2 miles. Seattle 4 miles. Ocean level below you. What the hell does that even mean? Lightning flashed again. For a brief second, the forest disappeared completely. There were no trees outside. Only hundreds of telephone poles stretching endlessly through darkness. Every pole carried hanging black garbage bags, swaying gently in the storm. Except they weren't bags. Bodies. Human bodies wrapped tightly in black plastic. Thousands of them. Lightning vanished. The forest returned instantly. Nolan almost lost control of the truck. Then the sound started. A whistle, soft at first, coming from somewhere far behind the truck. A single long note. Nolan's blood went cold immediately, because somehow he recognized it. Not the melody, the feeling, like hearing a sound from a nightmare you forgot years ago. The whistle came again, closer now. The radio instantly turned itself off. The engine noise became quieter. Even the storm outside faded, almost like the world itself was lowering its volume so Nolan could hear the whistle better. Then the GPS turned back on. New message. IT finds you by sound. Nolan stopped breathing. The whistle came again. Right behind the cabin now. BANG. The entire truck swerved hard. Another slam. BANG. Metal bent inward behind Nolan's seat. Then a voice whispered softly from the refrigeration vent beside his ear. Be quiet. Nolan instantly covered his mouth. The whistle stopped. Everything became silent. 10 full seconds passed. Then a car horn blasted loudly ahead. Nolan looked up. An old sheriff cruiser sat sideways across the highway, with flashing lights cutting through the rain. A deputy stood beside it, waving frantically. Nolan nearly cried from relief. Finally, another human being. The officer shouted through the storm, "Turn off your engine." Nolan slowed carefully, but something felt wrong immediately. The sheriff's cruiser had no tire tracks behind it. None, despite the flooded road. The deputy stepped closer into the headlights, and Nolan realized the man's uniform was outdated. Very outdated. Old brown sheriff clothing from decades ago. Rain passed directly through him, like smoke. Then the deputy smiled slowly and pointed upward toward the truck roof. Nolan looked into the side mirror. and saw a second face staring back at him from above the cabin, his own face. Nolan slammed the brakes. The truck screamed across the flooded highway as the ghostly sheriff vanished beneath the headlights. For one terrifying second, Nolan thought he had hit him. But when the truck finally stopped, nothing stood in front of the vehicle. No cruiser, no deputy, no tire marks, only rain circling silently around the truck without touching it. Nolan stared ahead, breathing hard, then slowly looked toward the side mirror again. His own face still watched him from the roof, smiling, not copying his movements, just smiling independently in the darkness above the cabin. Nolan instantly looked away. The thing on top of the truck moved again. Metal bent overhead with slow scraping noises, almost curious, like it was learning how the truck worked. Then every sound disappeared. Completely. The engine noise vanished first, then rain, then the low hum of the refrigeration system. Nolan could still feel the truck vibrating beneath him, but the world itself had gone silent, perfectly silent. His ears rang painfully. The dashboard radio flickered alive by itself. Channel number 0. No truck radio used channel 000. A voice suddenly spoke through the speaker. Not human, not male or female. Something else. Flat, emotionless. We lost another one. Nolan grabbed the mic immediately. Who are you? Static cracked. Then a second voice answered, older, terrified. Don't respond to it. The first voice continued calmly. It answered us too. Nolan's pulse hammered harder. Where are you? Heavy breathing filled the speaker. Then the terrified voice whispered, still driving. The transmission distorted violently afterward. For half a second Nolan heard hundreds of overlapping voices, screaming together through the radio. Then silence returned again. The dashboard clock changed. 2:07 a.m. Then, immediately, 11:03 p.m. Then, 4:44 a.m. Time was jumping randomly now. Nolan looked outside. The highway had changed. No more forest. No mountains. The truck now drove through a massive open plain covered in black, dirt stretching endlessly beneath, lightning-filled clouds. Telephone poles lined both sides of the road. Every pole carried speakers attached near the top, old rusted loudspeakers, thousands of them, and all of them slowly turned toward the truck as it passed. Nolan whispered, no. One speaker crackled softly, then another, then hundreds at once. Static spread across the empty landscape. The thing above the cabin suddenly stopped moving, completely still now. Listening, the speakers began playing voices, fragments, broken memories, people talking, crying, laughing, a child saying good night, a woman screaming for help, truck engines, police dispatch calls. Then Nolan heard his own voice. You should have stayed awake. His hands instantly tightened around the wheel. That sentence, he had said that exact thing to his younger brother 12 years ago during a hunting trip in Montana. The night his brother crashed their truck into a frozen river. Nobody else knew that. Nobody alive. The speakers repeated the sentence again. You should have stayed awake. Then hundreds of speakers repeated it together across the dark plains. You should have stayed awake. You should have stayed awake. You should have stayed awake. Nolan's breathing became shallow. The thing above the truck suddenly crawled toward the windshield. Long fingers slowly wrapped over the top edge of the glass. Its face lowered upside down into view. Except now, it had Nolan's face. Almost perfect. Same eyes, same beard, same scars, but the smile was wrong, too wide, and the eyes blinked one at a time. The creature mouthed 3 silent words. "I remember you," Nolan shouted and floored the accelerator. The truck roared forward violently. The copied face vanished upward again. The loudspeakers around the planes all activated simultaneously. A deafening whistle exploded across the landscape. Nolan nearly lost control instantly. The sound wasn't normal audio. It physically hurt. Blood leaked slowly from his nose. The windshield cracked slightly. Behind him, the trailer doors burst open. Both of them. Cold vapor exploded outward into the storm. Nolan looked into the side mirror and saw the cargo for the first time. The crates were empty, every single one, but something sat inside the trailer anyway. Rows of people, motionless, at least 20 of them, all sitting shoulder to shoulder, facing forward in complete silence. Truckers, police officers, travelers, children, all soaking wet, all staring directly toward the cabin. None of them blinked. The refrigeration monitor displayed one final message. Passengers accounted for. Nolan's heart nearly stopped. One of the seated figures slowly stood up inside the trailer. A teenage boy wearing a red hunting jacket. Nolan recognized it instantly. His brother's jacket. The figure stepped closer toward the open trailer doors. Its face remained hidden beneath darkness. Then the boy spoke softly through the storm. "Nolan." Tears filled Nolan's eyes immediately. "No." The figure raised its head slowly. His brother's face stared back at him, pale, frozen, river water dripping from his hair. "You left me under the ice." Nolan screamed and slammed his fist against the steering wheel. "That wasn't my fault." The road ahead suddenly split into 2 separate highways. One path continued through the plains. The other descended into total darkness. No lights, no visible road, just blackness. The GPS activated again? One sentence appeared. "Choose where the missing go." Then every speaker across the plains whispered together. "He finally hears us." The highway divided beneath the storm. One road stretched forward across the dead plains, beneath the screaming loudspeakers. The second descended into pure darkness. No signs, no lane markings, no visible horizon. Just black emptiness swallowing rain and light together. Nolan's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Behind him, the passengers inside the trailer remained perfectly still, watching, waiting. The thing wearing Nolan's face crawled somewhere above the cabin roof, dragging its limbs slowly across the metal. Every loudspeaker whispered together, "Choose." The GPS screen glowed brighter. "Choose where the missing go." Nolan stared at the dark road, then at the endless plains ahead. His brother's reflection appeared faintly in the windshield, not speaking anymore, only staring at him sadly. Nolan swallowed hard. 12 years. 12 years pretending the accident wasn't his fault. Pretending he didn't fall asleep behind the wheel. Pretending the river took his brother instead of his mistake. The storm suddenly became louder again. Rain finally struck the truck for the first time since mile 117. Hard, violent, real. The copped creature above the cabin hissed sharply like an animal reacting to the sound. Then Nolan understood. The silence had never protected him. It protected the thing. The creature hunted through sound, but feared real noise. Not voices, not engines, living noise. Thunder exploded overhead. The creature screeched across the roof violently. The passengers inside the trailer all turned, their heads toward the ceiling together. Nolan's eyes widened. An idea formed instantly. He grabbed the CB microphone, pressed every channel open at once. Feedback screamed through the truck speakers. Loud, piercing, violent static flooded the cabin. The thing above him shrieked. The mirrors cracked instantly. The copped face melted away from the windshield reflection like wet paint. Nolan slammed the truck toward the dark road. The moment the tires crossed into the blackness, everything changed. The storm vanished completely. No rain, no wind, no sound. The truck headlights illuminated a narrow road floating in endless darkness, not surrounded by darkness, floating inside it. No sky above, no ground below, only road, miles of isolated asphalt suspended in emptiness. Nolan's breathing slowed. The trailer behind him became silent now, too silent. Then the passengers began speaking together softly, not threatening, not angry, repeating addresses, names, dates, missing person reports. Every voice belonged to someone who had vanished on highways across America. Truckers, families, runaways, police, all trapped, all remembered by the road itself. The realization hit Nolan slowly. Mile 117 wasn't haunted. It was feeding. Something ancient lived between forgotten roads. A thing that copied memory instead of bodies. That's why it knew voices, faces, regrets. It survived by becoming pieces of lost people. And tonight, it wanted Nolan's guilt because guilt lasted forever. The creature above the truck began crawling downward across the windshield again. This time it no longer wore Nolan's face correctly. Pieces shifted constantly. His father, the sheriff, the little girl, his brother, broken stolen identities stitched together imperfectly. Its mouth opened unnaturally wide. Inside its throat, more faces moved beneath transparent skin. Still alive, still screaming silently. Nolan nearly lost control of the wheel. Then one passenger inside the trailer stood up. An old woman. Rainwater dripped from her gray coat as she stepped toward the open trailer doors. "We were never supposed to remember ourselves," she whispered softly. The others slowly stood beside her, one by one. Every missing passenger approached the doors calmly. The old woman looked directly toward Nolan through the mirror. "You brought sound back." The creature suddenly sensed movement. Its body twisted violently across the windshield. The faces beneath its skin began screaming. Then every passenger jumped from the moving trailer at once. Dozens of figures disappeared into the surrounding darkness. The loudspeakers far away immediately exploded with static. The creature shrieked in rage. Its body peeled backward from the cabin roof like burning paper. The road beneath the truck began collapsing behind Nolan. Chunks of asphalt vanished into darkness. The GPS displayed one final sentence. Keep driving until morning. Nolan pressed harder on the accelerator. The truck flew across the endless floating highway. Behind him, the creature chased the vehicle through darkness using stolen limbs and shifting faces. It no longer copied humans properly. Now it looked unfinished, raw, ancient, a living mistake hidden beneath America's forgotten roads. The truck's speed climbed higher, 90 miles per hour, 100, 101. The engine screamed. The darkness ahead slowly changed color, gray, then pale blue. Morning. Sunlight appeared faintly at the horizon. The creature shrieked louder. Its body began breaking apart beneath the growing light. Faces peeled away from its skin and vanished into the air like smoke. The stolen voices screamed one final time, then silence. At exactly 6:02 a.m., the truck burst out onto a normal highway outside Casper, Wyoming. Real traffic moved around him. Real rain fell naturally. Birds crossed the cloudy morning sky. Nolan nearly cried. The trailer behind him was closed again, perfectly locked. No damage, no passengers, nothing. The refrigeration monitor displayed normal temperatures, as if none of it had happened. Hours later, Nolan parked outside Raven Logistics cold storage facility. Workers unloaded the trailer normally. 32 sealed crates. Nothing unusual inside. Nolan sat silently in the cabin while sunrise lit the parking lot. Then one warehouse worker knocked on his door. "You okay, man?" Nolan nodded weakly. The worker frowned slightly. "You sure?" Nolan looked confused. "What do you mean?" The worker hesitated. "You've been talking to somebody this whole time." Cold fear crawled slowly up Nolan's spine. "Who?" The worker pointed toward the passenger seat. Nolan turned slowly. Nobody sat there, but the seat belt was fastened, and written across the fogged passenger window from the inside were 4 words. "You missed mile 117.